So the interesting thing that's coming up a week plus after the Nintendo Switch 2 presentation, there's been a lot of confusion when it comes to what are game key cards and what are standard Nintendo Switch 2 cartridges. We're looking at the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of Switch 1 games. Do you get everything on the cartridge or not? And there's been information flying around. I'm going to try to clear up some of that. And also the newest thing that kind of came out, talking about the power of the system. Exactly how strong is this or not? Digital Foundry has came out and given their initial analysis based off of, I guess, counting pixels on the screen from YouTube videos, in addition to just looking at some of the games and giving their overall expertise and saying that it's roughly around a PlayStation 4 or so, which has got a lot of people talking, considering the Nintendo Switch 2 games have actually went above the PlayStation 4. Now, and I will add, I did watch, or more like listen, to the full Digital Foundry podcast about Nintendo Switch 2 and what they had to say from their initial analysis, and there was a lot of asterisks and caveats by that statement of, oh, roughly PlayStation 4. Now, they said that a lot, but they also had a lot of buts and a lot of, well, maybes, and a lot of, okay, well, they might do some impossible ports and, you know, all different types of caveats, because they kind of fell into the same thing that happened with the Nintendo Switch 1 and saying, oh, it's pretty much Xbox 360. And then clearly it did things well better than Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. So I do think that they're a little bit more reserved to say, hey, look, there's asterisks by this, you know, overall, like, it could obviously perform better. It's a newer system, newer architecture, there's more memory bandwidth or whatever over PlayStation 4, but the base comparison's that. So that begs the question, considering how some people necessarily don't believe everything they have to say, especially before the system is even launched at this point, because I think there was an issue with the 33 teraflops, or there was a teraflop situation that they were saying that the PlayStation 5 Pro was a lot more stronger than what it actually ended up being, which misinformed, or which basically was not right. And then it led to the flopflation that Mark Cerny had to quell when they actually revealed the PlayStation 5 Pro. So let's get into it here, man. I think it's going to be interesting to go over what Video Gamer had to say talking to developers recently about the Nintendo Switch 2. And I want to preface this by saying I personally think overall getting something around PlayStation 4 power or a bit above that, or Xbox Series S power in a $450 hybrid platform is pretty impressive overall. And it seems like Nintendo might be selling the system at a loss based off of some new information that came up from one securities firm. But let's get into what Video Gamer had to round up when it comes to developers talking about the Nintendo Switch 2, essentially saying it's like a mid-tier PC and it's very easy to develop for, and it beats out the Steam Deck easily, actually, according to them. So let's talk about it, because big games like Star Wars Outlaws, which is PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series PC only, that didn't come to PS4 and Xbox One. Obviously, we know about Cyberpunk 2077. That's going to be a 64 gigabyte cartridge, all on the cart. It's also going to be running at 30 and 40 frames per second between the quality and performance mode. We have to wait and see for the full comparisons with image quality and all that. But yeah, it's running the Phantom Liberty DLC that's included on the cartridge that wasn't on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One because of technological limitations, at least according to CD Projekt Red. So you definitely see that there is more that it can do overall. So let's talk more about it here. So Civilization 7 executive producer Dennis Shirk explained that the new handheld is like a mid-tier PC in a minuscule form factor, with the producers saying, quote, "It's got enough power for modern games." As for actually creating games for the system, Shirk explained that Nintendo has been a great company to work with. Quote, "They made it easy," the developer said. "Their software development kit is great. Customer support, their developer support, developer relations is great." But I want all of my relations to be great with you guys. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop. And let me know what you're most excited about when it comes to third-party titles on the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, the Hogwarts Legacy head of technology, Rob Nelson, also echoed those thoughts as well, because remember, Hogwarts Legacy on the Nintendo Switch 1 was almost a completely different game visually. There was heavy cutbacks, massive visual cutbacks, loading zones, all sorts of stuff. The Nintendo Switch 2 version is pretty much the same as the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series version, albeit on the go and pretty good looking so far. Quote, in Hogsmeade, we made a hard load before, the developer said. Now we're able to remove that hard load. You get in and out of shops quickly. I would say it was comparable to working on Switch. It wasn't overly challenging. Nintendo collaborated with us. It's always for momentum. We had a good development cycle. Now, this new handheld space that we're seeing, this hybrid space that Nintendo kind of put out there in the forefront in 2017 is continuing to advance. There's a lot of stuff that's coming out. Obviously, we had the Steam Deck a number of years ago. I'm pretty sure there'll be a Steam Deck 2. We've had ROG Allies. We've had all sorts of stuff come up. But the main thing that most people have purchased when it comes to PC handles is the Steam Deck. And people want to know an accurate comparison between Switch 2 and Steam Deck overall, because that system is capable. It can play Assassin's Creed Shadows and many other big AAA games on the platform. However, it does seem like the Nintendo Switch 2 is more powerful, smaller, lighter, and has higher resolution and more features overall with the screen too. Now, Hades 2 developer Greg Kasavin also touched on this, talking about the device, saying that the new version of their game when it comes to Hades 2 runs at a target 60 frames per second, both on Steam Deck and the Nintendo Switch 2, and the Nintendo Switch 2 is proven to be a bit better experience because of the high resolution of the screen. And it's tough to kind of compare because Steam Deck sales are nowhere near the Nintendo Switch overall, and they're going to get beat out pretty quickly by the Nintendo Switch 2. But it's definitely good to see developers say, hey, look, this is actually more powerful than the Steam Deck, and it's looking like we're going to be able to do more in different things overall. Now, that doesn't mean that it's more powerful than some of the other big PC handhelds out there, but those ones are considerably more expensive, $100, $200, and sometimes even $300 over what the Nintendo Switch 2 is offering overall. So yeah, it's interesting to see and hear what the developers are saying, but I think the proof is going to be in the pudding overall when it comes to the actual games. When Cyberpunk comes out, we see what's going on there because they're pretty much doing a quick optimization job on that one. They said that the build that they showed off was about 7 weeks old. They put some good amount of time, but it's not like they developed the game for the system or anything. So seeing the comparisons with Street Fighter, seeing some of the comparisons out there with some of the other games, Final Fantasy VII Remake and everything, and how it has the intergrade system, looks better than the PlayStation 4. I think it's going to be telling once we start seeing the actual like frame rates along with image quality, along with resolution, and how these developers even utilize DLSS and some of the unique features of the Nintendo Switch 2, because it's not just like you can activate everything and DLSS is just going to fix every single game. There is a cost for that. It's not something that's just easy to do. So it's going to be interesting to see how or when developers actually implement the DLSS in very interesting ways to make something look considerably better overall, but less taxing on the hardware, or potential to where gamers can be like, man, I can get a 60 frames per second performance mode in a very taxing game, even though the output of the resolution is low, it looks good on my screen. So that is going to be really interesting to see if developers can come up with some awesome things there. But overall, I think that this is maybe even a little bit better that some people thought the Nintendo Switch was going to be from a graphic standpoint, especially when we started to see the comparisons with stuff like Cyberpunk and also with Street Fighter 6. I think that's a good comparison overall. Looks like it's lining up a bit better than the Xbox Series version, which I did talk about when it comes down to it in a video that I did about the graphics the other day. But yeah, I think it's going to be telling in the next number of months, and of course what other big games come out. There are going to be games like Split Fiction, which aren't quite the most graphically demanding game, but you can compare those and kind of line things up compared to like the Xbox Series or the PlayStation 5 versions of the game. I don't think those games are on PS4 or Xbox One. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting once again. But what do you guys think about all this? Let me know in the comment section. And now we're going to actually move on to the next topic here, and that is the Nintendo Switch 2 cartridges fiasco, whatever you want to call it, electric boogaloo. So let's talk about this, because there was originally a report from Does It Play, and these guys do good work. I'm not trying to downplay, but it seems like the information that they got was wrong, because they posted a really weird looking type of email that was like all black or whatever the case is in terms of it. Looks like it was written on DOS or something like that, because on there in that email, essentially they were saying Nintendo false advertised during the Nintendo Direct. Even though it wasn't official, that email, they kind of took it that way and saying that Nintendo already false advertised because the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of Switch 1 games are not complete on cart. It's a download code, and it's not complete on cart. So obviously that's going to create preservation issues overall. So that caused a bit of, I would say, a mini firestorm amongst people, because I don't know, people like to spread stuff like that. So that was a thing. Now, there was information that came out. I know Nate from Nintendo Prime, he actually came out and emailed them himself and got a different answer. There was other people that also emailed Nintendo UK and got the same answer Nate did, which said, no, it's complete on cart. Now we have another source that says the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of Switch 1 games, so like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, Metroid Prime 4, Mario Party Jamboree, Kirby, all of these games do not require a download code or internet connection overall. They don't do that. It's complete on cart with the game and the upgrade pack that's on there. So in a statement to Vooks, a Nintendo spokesperson said, quote, that physical versions of Nintendo Switch 2 edition games will include the original Nintendo Switch game and its upgrade pack all on the same card. So for example, they're exclusively Nintendo Switch 2 game cards with no download code. Now, alternatively, some publishers may release Nintendo Switch 2 edition games as download codes in physical packaging with no game cards. So as download codes in physical packaging with no game cards. So Nintendo's games, they're going to have it on cartridge, but that does not leave out what's happening with the other publishers. They could do game keys. Nintendo doesn't have any download codes as of right now at this point, but it's a possibility in the future. So that could still be a thing in the future. So it looks like for Nintendo and Nintendo published games, Nintendo Switch 2 edition titles will include the entire game on the card, no download required. So that's definitely a good thing, because the initial slew of Nintendo Switch 2 edition games are actually pretty cool. People are going to want to play those at 60 frames per second, 1440p for Zelda. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond runs at 4K 60, or it runs at 1080p 120 frames. It's pretty impressive what they've been able to do overall. It can run at 120 frames portable as well with lowered resolution. Like, it is really cool what they're doing with some of these editions, and people are going to want to play those on the Nintendo Switch 2. So to get them complete on cart, if you want to spend the extra to get that, then you can. However, you can still just buy the upgrade pack. A lot of us probably already have these games, obviously outside of Metroid Prime. But when it comes to like Mario Party Jamboree or Kirby and the Forgotten Land, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, those are all games that people have bought in the multiple millions. So you can just download the upgrade pack. You can purchase and download the upgrade pack and get the same thing. Or if you have NSO plus expansion pack Nintendo Switch Online, you simply get The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild at no additional cost to that. However, it's been revealed that in the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of the games complete on cart, you don't get the expansion pass for the original Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So keep that in mind. But if you have the expansion pass, you do get Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild upgrades for no additional cost. So that's essentially all the information there. I know it's a little bit kind of turning and winding overall. I took it that way when I first saw it. When it came to what Nintendo had to say with the Direct, I felt that it was complete on cart. But yeah, it's always good to get confirmations and everything. And obviously, we're still months out from launch. So getting all this cleared up right now is good. It's better to have it cleared up now than have it crop up later and people not know what's going on. So yeah, that's that. But what do you guys think overall when it comes to everything that we discussed here, from Nintendo Switch 2 edition games to the power discussion with the Nintendo Switch 2? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other videos right here on screen talking about the tariff situation with the Nintendo Switch 2 in pre-orders, or discussing more genre-defining games that Nintendo's talking about with the Nintendo Switch 2.